History is not decided by belief. It is decided by evidence. The idea that Africans may have reached the Americas before Christopher Columbus is one of the most controversial claims in world history. Some argue it's not only possible, but likely. Most professional historians, however, remain unconvinced. This documentary is not here to prove or dismiss this claim. Instead, we're going to ask a series of critical questions. What exactly is being claimed? What evidence is presented for it? Why do most historians reject that evidence? And what does this entire debate reveal about how we write and rewrite history? So, what is the claim? It's often called the pre-Columbian African contact theory. Generally, it argues that West Africans, most famously from the powerful Mali Empire, crossed the Atlantic Ocean sometime before 1492. These voyages might have been intentional expeditions, perhaps during the reign of Mansa Musa's predecessor, Abu Bakr II. Or, they could have been accidental, with sailors caught in ocean currents. It's important to clarify what this theory usually does not claim. Proponents are not arguing that Africa discovered the Americas or that they were responsible for building the great civilizations of the Olmec, Maya, or Inca. The claim is about contact, not conquest, about a possible meeting of worlds, not a transfer of civilization. It suggests a chapter in history that has been overlooked, not one that replaces another. To support this claim, advocates point to several types of sources. The most prominent are historical texts written by Arab scholars. For example, the historian Al-Umari, writing in the 14th century, recorded an account from Mansa Musa himself. According to the story, Mansa Musa's predecessor sent out two massive fleets to explore the limits of the Atlantic Ocean. The first fleet of 200 ships went out, and only one returned. Its captain reported that the others had been swept away by a powerful current. Intrigued, the ruler then apparently prepared a second, even larger fleet of 2,000 ships, which he led himself, leaving Mansa Musa to rule in his place. He never returned. Supporters of the theory see this as a direct account of a transatlantic voyage. The key issue for historians, however, is that these sources describe ambition and departure, not arrival. They prove that Malian rulers were curious about the Atlantic, but they don't confirm a successful landing on the other side. It's evidence of intent, not of contact. This brings us to the science of the ocean itself. A major part of the argument for pre-Columbian contact rests on oceanography. The Atlantic Ocean isn't just a vast, empty space, it's a system of powerful, predictable currents and winds. The Canary Current and the North Equatorial Current create a natural conveyor belt, flowing from the coast of West Africa directly towards the Caribbean and South America. Even a simple vessel, if caught in these currents, could drift across the Atlantic in a matter of weeks. We know that pre-modern transoceanic travel was not impossible. Thor Heyerdahl proved this in 1970 with his Rato expedition, sailing a reed boat from Morocco to Barbados. So, could a Malian ship have made the journey? Absolutely. The possibility is real. But here's the crucial distinction historians make: possibility is not proof. The fact that a crossing could have happened doesn't prove that it did. While historians accept the theoretical maritime possibility, they require concrete, physical evidence to turn that possibility into accepted historical fact. This is where the debate gets most intense: the search for artifacts and physical evidence. Proponents have pointed to a wide range of potential clues. One of the most famous is the apparent resemblance of the colossal Olmec heads of Mexico to African facial features. Others cite similarities in religious symbols, metallurgical techniques, or even the presence of certain plants like the bottle gourd in both Africa and the Americas before 1492. However, from the perspective of mainstream archaeology, each of these claims has a problem. Facial resemblance is highly subjective, and many archaeologists argue the Olmec heads depict local indigenous features. The supposed similarities in symbols or technologies are often explained as independent invention, different cultures arriving at similar solutions to common problems. Most critically, no unambiguously African artifact has ever been found in a secure, pre-Columbian archaeological context in the Americas. A single Malian coin, a piece of pottery, or a tool, properly excavated and dated, could change the entire conversation. But as of today, that smoking gun, that uncontested piece of archaeological proof, does not exist. This lack of physical evidence is the single greatest weakness of the theory. So what kind of proof would it take to change the minds of historians? What's the gold standard for accepting such a revolutionary claim? First, securely dated African artifacts found in a sealed, undisturbed pre-Columbian archaeological site in the Americas. Second, verifiable biological evidence. This could mean pre-Columbian human remains in the Americas with unambiguous African DNA, or even the remains of African plants or animals that couldn't have crossed the ocean naturally. Third, multiple, independent lines of evidence that all point to the same conclusion. For instance, an archaeological find that is supported by linguistic evidence and confirmed by genetic data. So far, none of these criteria have been met. This is why the theory remains a hypothesis. It's not that historians are actively suppressing the truth, it is that the evidence presented has not met the rigorous standards of the historical and archaeological professions. Given the lack of conclusive evidence, why does this theory persist and remain so popular? The reasons are complex and deeply rooted in history itself. For centuries, the narrative of world history was overwhelmingly Eurocentric. It often downplayed or completely ignored the achievements and capabilities of non-European cultures, especially those from Africa. African maritime history, for example, is far richer than is commonly taught, with long traditions of navigation on rivers and coastlines. There is a legitimate and understandable desire to correct this historical imbalance and to challenge narratives that have long denied African agency and innovation. This theory speaks to a powerful need to see African history as active and global, not passive and isolated. That desire doesn't make the theory true, but it explains why it resonates so deeply with so many people. Ultimately, this debate forces us to make a critical distinction, the difference between what is possible and what is proven. Questioning established historical narratives is not only healthy, it's essential for the discipline to grow. History is a constant process of revision based on new evidence. But responsible historical inquiry requires that we don't fill the gaps in our knowledge with speculation or belief. The absence of evidence isn't proof of a conspiracy to hide the truth. Sometimes, it's just an absence of evidence. We have to be comfortable with uncertainty and resist the temptation to declare something a fact just because we want it to be true. So, after examining the claims, the sources, and the counterarguments, where do we stand? Did Africans reach the Americas before Columbus? The most honest answer is this: it is theoretically possible. But it is, as of now, historically unproven. It remains a fascinating and important hypothesis, but it is not an established fact. Recognizing the real, documented achievements of African civilizations from the universities of Timbuktu to the architectural wonders of Great Zimbabwe does not require us to claim things that cannot be proven. Real history is powerful enough on its own. Truth strengthens our understanding of the past. Exaggeration, even with the best of intentions, ultimately weakens it. If this deep dive into historical debate surprised you, it just goes to show how complex and fascinating the story of our world really is. To explore more serious, evidence-based history, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I want to hear from you. What level of evidence do you think is needed to officially change the historical consensus on a topic like this? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.